During the Renaissance, people prepared Heraclitus as a crying philosopher and Democritus as a laughing philosopher. Today, modern people have a hard time accepting tragedy. There's a light optimism in our culture dominated by the Apollonia rather than the Dionysian, and we don't see a deep dimension. Humans only try to look on the good side. According to German philosopher Klaus Helt, this tendency of modern people is the tendency to persist ridiculously. People live in the belief that their values are sustainable. But nothing lasts forever. Scott Peck also said he agrees with Klaus Helt. Most people live without realizing the easy truth that life is complicated. Life is insignificant and easy, so I complain that life's difficulties are harsh. The process of solving life problems is as tricky as life itself. Life is always filled with as much pain as difficulty and joy because such a thorny problem continues. Life is a series of problems, and solving problems requires an attitude that requires training and time. On this, Carl Jung said, "Neuroses is the result of avoiding pain that should always be suffered." People only see what they see. I try to avoid suffering by simply thinking about the world. But the effort to prevent it brings more pain. That's the crazy idea of maintaining the status quo. The tendency to continue the state ridiculously appears within the church. I think prosperity theology tends to continue the form ridiculously. The tendency to live in an imperfect world filled with sin and hope for a happy state to continue is not the correct belief. The ancient philosopher F.M. Conferd described the development of human thought in ancient Greek philosophy, comparing it to the stage of the intellectual development of a young child. The thinking characteristics in each era are primarily explained in the following three ways. The discovery of an object is the separation of self from external things. The preoccupation of intelligence with the practical need for action to deal with the object. The belief in the invisible supernatural forces inside or behind the subject being addressed. A newborn baby has the idea that he and the world are one. As the baby grows up, he realizes that he and the world are separated. The discovery that things exist outside is an early stage in human growth. Through this process, human thoughts grow. If you look at it that way, the faith of prosperity and health is still just the early thinking of a newborn baby. My belief in succeeding without problems is not faith. If a believer firmly believes in this belief, he will be in deep trouble shortly. Such a believer greatly misunderstands God's will toward us. God's will for you is not just your success or prosperity. God wants your holiness and growth. He also allows disciplinary action for God's purpose. In this case, if you believe in bad faith, you will be tested. Optimism is a good thing. I don't deny optimism either. But we need to think about what authentic optimism is. I divide optimism into two things in that respect. One is blind optimism. The other one is open-eye optimism. The former are usually unfounded pursuits of false dreams. On the other hand, the latter excludes fantasy and refers to actions through assumptions and inferences based on harsh reality. But this open-eye optimism requires a long time of training.